All right, welcome to groups and organization topic here, topic number 7. And with this topic, we're going to be looking at groups and, oh my goodness, organizations, which are just bigger and fancier type of groups in our society there. Oh, sorry, I have my text messages are going off. You're not getting messages, I am. All right, so apologies for that. So yeah, so in this first video, we're going to look at defining groups and looking at, because if you haven't figured it out by now, sociologists really love to define things and then also to break them into different types. So we'll look at this sort of foundational information here in this first video. So going through actually all of the topic and all the content for this topic, it will be helpful if you can, try and find examples that apply to your own life. So take a minute here at the beginning to identify any social groups that you're a part of, and a helpful way to sort of do that and make that list is think about your different statuses and or the statuses and the roles that are attached to each of those statuses. So this is from the social interaction topic, and from that then make a list of some of the different groups that you're a part of. So for example, I would start with my status as a Red Deer Polytechnic instructor. And because of that status and the role that I play, I am a member of a few different groups. I am an instructor, and so in any given term, I have 3 to 4 classes, which each of them would be a group that I'm a part of. So this one included. So Sociology 1260 is one group that I'm a part of. Also, in my status and role as an instructor, I also am a part of a group of other faculty within my department. And then I'm also a member of the Research Ethics Board at Red Deer Polytechnic, which would be a third group that I'm a part of. So take some time, as I said, make a list of some of the specific groups that you are a part of, and I'll prompt you at different points to try and think of your own personal examples for the content and the points that I am covering in the video here. In terms of the online textbook, there is only one required box of information that you will be required to read, and it is this one about groupthink and conforming to group expectations. I'll cover that in one of the other videos, not this video, but one of the other videos here for this particular topic. All right, so let's get into groups. So let's define what a group is. So social structure, we looked at social structure, we've looked at it a few times in the course. Remember in the introduction videos, we talked about the individual within a society, and a social structure is that, remember that, I can draw it on the board here. We talked about the individual, and the individual, acts and has, capabilities and skills. My drawing abilities are horrible. So you have the individual, and the individual lives within a particular society, and that society was represented by this, in the way I looked at it, the social structure. And that social structure is made up of, all the things that make up a society. So culture, one of the things we looked at, the statuses and roles that society has available for people, and the rules for behaving when you're in various statuses. So those normative expectations, those are part of the social structure. Social institutions, the family. We look at the role that the family plays in socialization. So all of that is the social structure. So groups are just another part of the social structure that provide guidance and framework for the individual as they're living their good sociological life there. All right, so social structure includes the groups that make up society, and then also the relationships between and amongst those groups. The concepts of social interaction and social structure are also really closely linked to groups and social and organizations. Often social interactions take place in front of groups of people, groups of friends, relatives, coworkers, or social interactions also at the same time take place within formal organizations, such as a polytechnic or a prison, just two random ones there. Whatever the setting, an underlying social structure dictates that relationships among members of the group or organization and the ways in which they respond and interact to one another. So within that, we have a social group, and a social group then, our definition of it is any number of people with similar norms, values, and expectations who interact meaningfully with one another on a regular basis. So members of the group share a common identity and a feeling of connectedness, a feeling of interdependence with one another. And that's sort of this sort of special we kind of notion. You feel connected to them in a really meaningful way. So every society is composed of many groups in which daily social interactions take place. We seek out groups to establish friendships, to accomplish certain goals, and to fulfill the social roles that we have acquired, that we have a member either achieved or ascribed statuses. So a social group is just simply a specific group of identifiable people. Now, virtually everyone moves through life with a sense of belonging. This is the experience of group life, of group social life, while we manage to maintain always a strong sense of our own individuality, who we are as a person, our uniqueness. We can still think of ourselves as a special we, a social we, which arises from our participation in various social groups. The we aspects of our identities is essentially our social self. And so when we talk about groups of behavior, not all grouping of two or more people fits this definition of a social group. So let's look at some groupings of people that do not fall within a social group. We still find them interesting and we'll study them, but they don't have the key markers of what we define sociologically as a social group. So here we have an example here, a lineup of people. So lining up for this image here looks like they're voting. But any sort of lineup of individuals, this would be an example of the first kind of collection of people, which we call an aggregate. An aggregate is not a social group. And this is because it's a collection of people just who happen to be in the same place at the same time and essentially then have little else in common. They share a common purpose. So in this case, voting or buying ice cream if they're at the ice cream shop. But besides that common purpose, they generally do not interact with one another except very briefly, or maybe a little longer if the line is really long. An aggregate not a social group because it is too transitory, it's too brief, it's too impersonal to qualify as a social group, and in all likelihood, people, even if they are interacting together within the lineup, they're likely never to be with those people again. So aggregate, not a social group. Another type of gathering of people would be a category. This also is not a social group. Category is a number of people who may never have met each other, but share a similar characteristic. So they might have the same age. If we talk about, say, a generation of people, and we do lump people together in terms of generations. So, for example, I'm a member of Generation X, and so broadly that tells you how old I am because Generation X captures people who have been born between certain years. Likewise, you are probably members of generation, and I've lost track now, but probably not millennials. I think you're too young for being a millennial. So you're Generation Y, Generation Z, I believe. I think they just gave the title Generation Alpha to, people born this year within the last year or two. So generation would be a category of people, and really, one of the things that just have in common is that age. In other cases, it's people who have some status and in common as well. Categories are not social groups because the vast majority are strangers to each other. The people in them usually do not have anything in common other than a particular trait. So another example that I gave here in terms of the image, I grabbed, I think it's probably, hopefully it's an old Facebook group, but it's, Nickelback fans. So, fans of the band Nickelback would be a category of people, and they, really the only thing bringing them to become members of this closed group of Nickelback fans would be that common status or characteristic there. All right, so those are what is not a social group. So what can we sort of extrapolate from that to, define what a social group actually is? So a social group differs from those haphazard collection of individuals in 4 ways. Members of a social group will have a shared identity. And so that is, they believe that they have something in common, and that is, speaks to who they feel they are and their sense of self as individuals, and others, share that. The members of a social group are going to interact regularly. Social groups also have an element of a social structure within them as well. So that means that interactions amongst people within the social group, the interactions are not random. There's rules, there's patterns for those interactions. Evidence of the social structure is that one's status or role then determines the actions and the behavior of members in the group. So for example, a family would be an example of a social group, and there are different roles within that. So there's parents, and they, then being a parent, having that status then determines how they are to act and behave and interact with other family members, for example, the children. Other evidence of a social structure would be the group helps the individuals within the group meet certain needs, and activities of that group are usually geared towards some common goal. So that would be social groups have a social structure. And finally, social groups their existence is going to depend and need consensus amongst all the members. Members must agree to some extent on things like values, the rules, norms, and goals of the group there. So, that would be our definition of what a social structure is, a social group is. Now, I'm not going to go into detail again because your online textbook has, sufficient enough information here. But within kind of this, within a social group, or what that is, we actually can identify different types of group. So social groups can be distinguished in terms of being either primary groups or secondary groups. Another way that we talk about groups or label groups, a social group may be known as a reference group. And then finally, we talk about groups often as being an in-group or an out-group. So, and then, then the last thing I'll note also in the online reading, in the Little reading for this topic, Little covers group leaders, because again, that's part of the social structure aspect of social groups. Most social groups have a leader. So he'll provide a definition of that, as well as I believe he goes through some different types of leaders for social groups. So for all of this, Remember I asked you to create a list of the different groups that you were a part of. So go through those or some of them and see if they fit the definition of a social group that we've outlined here. And then see if you can, identify whether it's a primary group or a secondary group. Would it be a reference group for you? Not all groups are reference groups for us. And then is it in-group or out-group in that way? So use little to help you sort of get a sense of, for example, what is a primary group, what is a secondary group, and how you can apply your examples to that. And then finally, also think about, do some of the groups have leaders? And if they do they fit any of the definitions or types of group leaders that little goes through? I am the leader of all, no, I have all the groups I am. No, however, for the groups, as I told you that I have, in my role as an instructor, I am the leader of that group to some extent for each of the classes, because I have a certain amount of, power and authority in that relationship I have with students in that class. So hopefully I'm a good leader in that regard, and we'll just leave it at that. Okay, before I end this video, we're going to look at the journal post questions for this topic here. Journal post questions are going to be due on May 8th. And for the content I just covered in this video here, really, potentially, you could use some of this information for, oh, that's the wrong slide. Oh, darn. Okay, let me very quickly, my apologies here. I'm also aware that I am recording. Dual credit. Oh, helps if I go to the actual course. This is not good recording behavior. My apologies so much. Have to just find the right material here. I think I'm almost there. No, deviant. Okay, this should be it here. Oh, it's not right. Okay, I will, my apologies. I'll fix this for the next video in this regard. So, although, as I'm looking at this, so, okay, the only thing that is wrong here, so is this, I didn't fix the topic. So, okay. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'll fix it right now. All right, so all you have to do is choose, so question 1, as we've seen this in previous journal posts, question number 1, you're going back to that current issue or event that you selected way back in journal post number 1 and see if there's any content in this topic. And we've only just touched on a little bit of it here, but anything here that you could use to study or understand the issue or the event that you picked there. So I've given, and this is correct here, so I'm not sure why I was fumbling there. So giving you an example of of some potential questions you could use, to get into a study of that issue there. Okay. All right, I'm going to end this video here, and we'll start